What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of our podcast. I'm your host, Diego.
And I'm Mina. And we're just two besties from LA talking about the weirdest stuff we can find on the internet.
Correction, I'm the one who does actual research. Mina just vibes and makes conspiracy theories.
Ha ha ha. Okay, rude. But also kind of true. I prefer to think of it as intuitive investigation.
That's literally just a fancy way of saying guessing.
Whatever. Some of us have a third eye that's actually open, Diego.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And some of us have two eyes that actually read credible sources.
Okay, but listen. Today we're covering something seriously wild, like not our usual internet drama or true crime situation.
Yeah, this one's actually pretty recent and still ongoing. We're talking about the Havana Syndrome.
Oh, this one is so creepy. It's giving secret government experiment, spy movie vibes, and just straight up X-Files energy.
For once, I actually kind of agree with you. Like, this story is bizarre, even with my skeptical brain.
Tell the people what we're talking about.
Okay, so basically starting around 2016, a bunch of American diplomats and spies stationed in Cuba started experiencing these really strange symptoms. We're talking severe headaches, hearing weird sounds, feeling pressure in their heads, dizziness, brain fog.
Some of them even reported hearing like chirping sounds or feeling intense pressure, and it wasn't just a few people, it was dozens.
Yeah, and these weren't just people claiming they had a headache. Medical scans showed actual brain injuries, like whatever was happening to them was causing physical changes to their brains.
The fact that doctors could see evidence of it makes it 10 times creepier. Like, this wasn't just in their heads. It was literally in their heads, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you. So it all started in Havana, Cuba, hence the name. But the freaky part is it kept happening to more Americans in different countries later on.
It's giving worldwide conspiracy. Like, this wasn't just isolated to Cuba. American diplomats in China, Russia, Austria, and other countries started reporting the same symptoms. Even some people in Washington, D.C.
The timing is interesting, too. This started happening right when the US and Cuba were finally warming up relations after decades of tension. Obama had just restored diplomatic ties with Cuba in 2015.
That's sus timing, for sure.
Right? So the first cases were reported in late 2016. American and Canadian diplomats in Havana started experiencing these symptoms, and it was serious enough that by 2017, the U.S. pulled most of its embassy staff out of Cuba.
Can you imagine being one of those diplomats? You're just living your life, doing your job in Cuba, and suddenly you start hearing weird sounds and feeling like your brain is being squeezed.
That would be terrifying. Some of the victims described it as feeling like they were standing in a beam of energy. And the symptoms weren't temporary. Many of them are still dealing with health issues years later.
Wait, what kind of sounds were they hearing exactly?
Different people reported different things. Some said it was like a high-pitched ringing. Others described it as grinding metal or a buzzing noise. Some even compared it to the sound of cicadas or crickets.
And they would just suddenly hear this while they were, working at their desk? Or in the middle of the night?
Both, actually. Some incidents happened at diplomats' homes, sometimes waking them up at night. Others happened at hotels or even out in public. But what's really weird is that often it was super localized.
What do you mean?
Like someone would experience it in one specific room of their house or even just one part of a room, step a few feet away, and the sound and sensation would completely stop. That's why some experts started thinking it might be some kind of directed energy weapon.
Oh my god, like a sci-fi weapon? That's literally insane.
I know, right? And that's when the theories started going wild. Was it a sonic weapon, microwave radiation, some kind of new technology we don't fully understand?
Or maybe it was straight up psychic attacks. I'm just saying, we can't rule anything out.
Sure, Mina. I'm sure the Cuban government hired Professor X to give Americans headaches.
Ha ha ha. Okay, but seriously, what were the main theories?
So the biggest one was that it was some kind of directed energy weapon, possibly using microwave radiation. There's actually scientific precedent for this. Since the 1960s, there have been reports of something called the Frey effect, where microwave radiation aimed at someone's head can cause them to hear sounds that aren't actually there.
Wait, that's a real thing? Microwaves can make you hear sounds?
Yeah, it's wild. The microwaves cause a tiny heating effect in your inner ear, which your brain interprets as sound. The US government actually took this theory seriously enough that they started designing devices to detect microwave radiation to protect their diplomats.
So who would even have this kind of technology and why would they use it on random diplomats?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Early on, a lot of people pointed to Russia since they've researched directed energy weapons for decades. Some theories suggested Cuba might be working with Russia. Other theories pointed to China.
Plot twist. What if it was actually the US government spying on its own people? Like, maybe they were testing some new surveillance tech and it went wrong.
That's actually been suggested too. Some people think it could have been friendly fire from American surveillance equipment, but honestly, there's not enough evidence to say for sure.
I've also read that it could have been some kind of mass psychogenic illness, like basically a mass hysteria situation.
Yeah, that's another theory, and it's the one a lot of skeptics lean toward. The idea is that after the first few cases, other diplomats became hyper-aware and started attributing normal headaches or sounds to this syndrome.
But wouldn't that not explain the actual brain scans showing injury? That's the part that takes it from maybe they're imagining it to no, something physically happened to them.
True, but even those brain scan findings are disputed by some experts. Science is messy like that.
What about like natural explanations? Could it have been something environmental?
There was actually a theory that it was just crickets.
No freaking way.
I am dead serious. Some scientists suggested that the sounds people were hearing matched the mating call of a specific Caribbean cricket, but that wouldn't explain the symptoms or the brain injuries.
Okay, but like, what's the latest on this? Is it still happening?
That's what makes this so wild. Cases have continued to pop up through 2021 and 2022, including in Vienna, Berlin, and even in Washington, D.C., right near the White House.
That's actually terrifying. Like, if this is some kind of attack, it's happening on US soil.
The U.S. government has taken it seriously enough to pass a law called the Havana Act in 2021, which provides financial support to affected government employees. They've also appointed a task force to investigate.
How many people have been affected so far?
The numbers keep changing, but it's somewhere around 200 American diplomats, intelligence officers, and their family members across different countries.
And they still don't know what's causing it, like the CIA or FBI or whoever hasn't figured this out yet.
In early 2022, the CIA released an interim report saying they couldn't find evidence of a foreign adversary being behind most of the cases. They said most could be explained by environmental factors, undiagnosed medical conditions, or stress.
That feels like a cover-up, not gonna lie.
Maybe, but they did say that a couple dozen cases couldn't be explained and were still being investigated, so they're not completely ruling out the directed energy weapon theory.
What's so creepy about this whole thing is that it sounds like something out of a spy movie, but it's actually happening.
And it's happening to real people who are still suffering from these symptoms years later. Some had to retire early because of brain injuries.
So what do you think it is? You're usually Mr. Skeptical about everything.
Honestly, I'm torn. The scientist in me wants to say there's probably a simple explanation we're missing. But the evidence for actual physical harm is pretty compelling.
My money's on some kind of secret weapon. The timing, the specific targeting of diplomats, the consistent symptoms, it all points to an intentional attack.
I'm not fully convinced it's a weapon, but I do think something real is happening. The fact that so many cases have been reported across different countries over several years makes it hard to dismiss.
What if we never find out what caused it? Like, what if this just becomes one of those unsolved mysteries?
That's actually a real possibility. Unless someone comes forward with concrete evidence or confesses to being behind it, we might never know for sure.
That's the scariest part to me. Like, imagine having your brain damaged by some invisible force and never knowing who did it to you or why.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. And the fact that it could theoretically happen to anyone is unsettling.
Well, on that deeply comforting note,
Yeah, sorry for the nightmare fuel, everyone. But hey, that's what you come to this podcast for, right?
and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the Havana Syndrome is a weapon, a natural phenomenon, or something else entirely? Drop a comment below.
And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the weird and unexplained.
And as always, remember to stay safe and keep your tinfoil hats handy.
Ugh, we're not actually telling people to wear tinfoil hats, Mina.
I mean, if there are microwave weapons out there, it's not the worst idea.
See you next week, everyone.